My name is Cyndi Masters, and I'm an alcoholic. Still grateful as all get out. How lucky are we? You know, beyond blessed. So the 11th step is my absolute favorite step. Well, maybe 12 or 3. But I love step 11, and COVID was a real gift to me with this step because it really enlarged my spiritual life. Allie and I, it's really where we connected, was he heard me give a 3rd step talk, and then he had me give an 11th step talk at FOTS, and then I started listening to him, and it was just this connection that was all about God. And from somebody that got here that couldn't stand it when somebody would say that word in a meeting, you know, God. F-bomb, no problem, but God. You know? To like build relationships around that intimacy that only happens when God sits in the middle. And it's like, I think it's more vulnerable than sex to talk about God and how I really feel about God. And so I really quick go through kind of what the book says. It says we suggest prayer and meditation. Shouldn't be shy on the matter of prayer. Here's the good news. That means different things to everybody. It does. That's the great news. You know, like, and I have experienced prayer so differently through my recovery. And what I have to be willing is to grow in prayer and grow in my prayer life. It does say that better people than us are using it constantly. And then what Ken was talking about, when we retire at night, we constructively review our day. And some of my girls and I do this together. So I sponsor some of the most amazing women on the planet. And I have no idea why they call me sponsor, because they are like amazing, right? And so we get to share this, and the intimacy that we share in sharing our 11th step. And I'll be honest, sometimes it doesn't get done in writing at night. Sometimes it happens in the morning because I just crash and burn, you know, and for them. But for me, what's important is lack of discipline is our part of our problem, right? And so if I miss at night, I don't want to give myself the excuse that I get to just pass it on, you know? So I want to try to do it the next morning. Do I do this perfect? No, 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 no. Do I do anything perfect? No, 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 no. Do I do it better than I've ever done it? Yes. Yes, I do. So we ask ourselves, were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? I have never had a day where none of that came up. I would like to tell you, man, I got sober. I worked these steps. I worked so hard. I begged God to remove it all. And it became wall-to-wall peaches and cream. But the truth is, I'm a human being, and these things show up in my life. Have we kept something to ourselves which should be discussed with another person at once? That's something that's kind of something I really have to look for. Because secrets will kill me, and in sobriety what will happen is they'll begin to create shame, and then I'll begin to avoid people and places. So did I keep anything to myself? Am I keeping a secret about home? Am I keeping a secret about work? It's very dangerous for somebody like me. Oh my goodness. Do we owe an apology? Most days, no. So we're talking about maybe 5 out of 6, you know, right? That's most days. So I don't want to give the impression that even though most days the answer is no, that doesn't mean it's weeks and weeks that I never owe an apology. It just means there are more days that I don't owe an apology at the end of the day because I made it during the day than others. Oh my goodness. Other than the sex inventory, were we kind and loving toward all? I have some days that I can say yes to that. And that's great. I'm talking traffic. I'm talking about the barista that got my drink wrong 3 times at Starbucks. You know, I'm talking, you know what I mean? I'm talking about all, right? I'm talking about my neighbor that just loves us because we've done what you taught us to do and shown up, and he sits in his window and watches for us to come home. And so it's like, Was I loving to Bob today? Yes, 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 yes. We took care of his wife when she died because he didn't have anybody else to, and he's a really good guy, but we're it. So that's part of what you guys have taught me to do, to be like, it doesn't say be useful in AA. It says be useful everywhere. Oh my goodness. Here's the part that the only place they'd ask us to do this before this is a sex inventory, and that is, what could we have done better? What should we have done instead, it says in the sex inventory, right? And that is so important for me here, because that forces me to go to solution. That means that I don't have to repeat yesterday the same way today, and I get to learn from it. And oh boy, I have misused this in so many ways. Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time? Okay, who today has not been thinking of themselves most of the time? You know what I mean? Like, golly, and then were we thinking of ourselves most of the time, or were we thinking of what we could do for others, of what we could pack into the stream of life? Sometimes I have overdone the stream of life to a place that it interferes with what I can do for others. And if you've done this, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it's like 3 businesses sitting on a number of nonprofit boards, being on committees on the city, sponsoring a bunch of women, you know, having a big book meeting at my house, having a home group, traveling. I was traveling too much. I was out like 3 out of 4 weekends, and I cut that out. I go once a month because of our better example lives in my life. For me, that's not true for everybody. I'm not retired. I have a bunch of other things. I want to be at my girls' weddings and things like that. So I was packing so much in, I was missing the important stuff. You know, I was missing weddings. I was missing baby showers. I was missing those moments and the people closest to me, and coming to spend it with people that you're never strangers, but you know what I'm saying? It's like I need to show up for my life. And that was an 11-step thing that came to fruition for me, because I packed it in, and I still have more packed in than I need to. AA and God have to be first, but that doesn't mean that it's all, and it doesn't mean for me that it's on the road. It means that I have to evaluate. Each thing I do takes away from something else. And where is that? And I pray. And this is where, because I'm connected with God. And when I am connected with God, and it is not me thinking, it is God thinking, it is me being in tune with God and conscious of God, then I will have intuition about what I need to do with these decisions. And they will be different for all of us. See, there's not an exact formula. There just isn't. My big goal is when I retire, I get to do more service, right? That's why I want to retire. It's the best thing in my life. And then here's the really important thing, especially, I don't know if this is as true for men, because I'm not one, but for women, to not drift into morbid reflection. Because it's so easy to like look at ourselves, and then it's just, well, we're just a piece of, you know, it's just to really beat ourselves up. And then what happens is when I beat myself up and I say I'm not fit for human consumption, you know, then what happens is then I'm not, because I've put myself in a place that I'm not, instead of asking God's forgiveness, making whatever I got to do right? But I can't, because it will diminish my ability to be useful to you. On awakening, before I'm out of bed, pillows up, eyes are open, because I'm a thinker too. My sponsor said, you remember they used to have a slogan called think, think, think? My sponsor said that's because I only get 3 thinks about anything. You get to think it once, twice, 3 times, you're done. But I'm a thinker. I'm a feeler and a thinker. You know, I think frequently and I feel deeply, just like most alcoholics. And so asking God to direct my thinking, especially divorces, you know, from self-pity, dishonest. There's a reason self-pity is number 1, right? We have this propensity to focus on self, feel sorry for ourselves. and, dishonest, self-seeking motives. Now I'm fit for human consumption. Now, even when I go to the bathroom, now when I get ready to pray. And for me, in here, I'm not going to keep reading out of the book. I'm going to tell you what I do. So in here, it's like in the morning, my prayer life is rich and deep and meaningful. I'm going to tell you it's evolution. So they said meditate, and I was new. And somebody, Kent, I think, was talking about I vibrated and I smoked a lot. And you know what I mean? And I don't just have a committee, I got a firing squad. None of you piece of junk. You know you don't. Blah, 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 blah. So sitting still and being quiet, you might as well send me straight to hell. So, right? So I bought a Harley Davidson that vibrated more than me. It had long fishtail straight pipes. I'm hard of hearing now because of it. And it's like, and it was louder than the voices in my head. And I could feel God in the wind. And it was my first meditation tool. Because, see, God will meet us where we are. I don't have to go where you are. If you can ohm away. Today I can do a little ohm, but I couldn't. But on that Harley, it separated everything, and I could actually focus on listening to God. What is God? Here's the other thing I believe, and I didn't really discover this till I was longer sober. Every single one of us has an absolutely perfect listening device with God. See, we worry about how am I going to hear God, right? I used to worry. And it does say that we're going to pray for intuitive thought. And it says in the beginning we're going to pay for this in absurd ways, right? And I have, because I've tried to manipulate people and myself because it's the nature of the alcoholic. But I believe that all of us, like if you imagine a 10 count, those little cartoons, and there's a string that goes from the next room, and you're talking to your sister on the 10 can listening, right? That's how I imagine this little part right here, that is God. And if I'll tune into that, I can hear God perfectly. But I have to get all the noise away. So what COVID gave me, and COVID changed my meditation and prayer practice have changed so much. Quite frankly, as busy as I am, it can limit it. It can limit the amount of time that I can invest in true prayer and meditation. And here's the thing, I used to always say that the very happiest I've ever been is when I am working with a newcomer and I watch the lights come on. And it probably is because it's the greatest joy of seeing God in action. But a very close second is when I am truly prayerful, when I'm truly able to get to that still and be that open for God to come in, when I really don't have an agenda, when I really am not bringing I need or want, and I'm really just, what would you have me do and be? What would you have me do and be? The book talks about we bring other reading materials in. And man, I have an office at home, and on this wall, one side of the wall is nothing but variety, and floor to ceiling, variety of spiritual books. And I have everything. I have a bunch of different Christian Bibles. I have the Quran. I have a bunch of stuff from Dalai Lama. I have all of Thomas Merton's books. I have most of Khalil Gibran's. I have Rumi. I have all of these books, and I randomly select because I want to see where they're right. Not where particular one's right. I want to see where they are right, where your God comes into play in my life. And that's pretty cool. Don M., who lives in my city, he writes a meditation every day that I get to send out on his behalf. And so that is always part of my morning thing, because at night I send that out to hundreds of people for him. And then here's what the gift to me is it forces me to have to read it. I mean, I don't have to read it. I could just pass it on. But you know what I mean? It's right there. And it's terrific because it just simplifies. I like simple. Dr. Bob said that don't louse this thing up, man. Keep it simple, right? I like simple. So during COVID, I got the privilege of getting to spend 3 hours in prayer and meditation in the mornings, which is just, who gets that? It's decadent. It's decadent. And my head was busy. I was afraid. And when COVID first happened, I felt like I was back in jail because I wasn't allowed to leave my house. and it made me afraid. And so I took up the Native American flute. Now, I already got walls of guitars in my office, right? But I took up the Native American flute because it focuses on breath. And so I had to, I can't be shh. And so I would begin my prayer and meditation. Sometimes I play that for half hour, sometimes I play that for an hour. And here's a really cool thing. I have a really cool yard with lots of nature and water features. And so I played a flute, and the birds will come. They will come and play with me. I mean, it's like it's the coolest thing since sliced bread. I mean, it's just like, and so then there's all these birds around. Now, maybe they weren't playing with me, but I like to believe they were, okay? So just run with it with me, all right? Because it makes me happy. Oh, and here's the other thing. Here's the other thing I've learned. If the birds show up and they sing and I'm playing, it's okay for me to think they came to play with me. And I didn't need to judge it. So what happened was that thing I said that I didn't understand why peace would be a promise. I didn't, because I had never known peace. My drinking life, I began drinking when I was this big, and I drank daily from the time I was 14 on. I was on the streets. I lived like that. And so there just never been peace for me. And so you don't miss something you haven't had. I didn't miss God because I hadn't had God. What I thought was God, I didn't, so I didn't miss God. So I got this peace. I just got this peace, and I became better, and I became more useful in COVID than pre-COVID. Who would have thought that? Because the people I help locally, I continue to. Business was way less of a priority. I wasn't sure if my business was going to survive at the beginning of COVID. In reality, they've thrived, which is crazy. Then on Zoom, like Gus is here, and there's Allie, and there's Calvin and Lana, and there's so many people in this room today that I only have met you in little boxes. But I feel an intimate connection with you three. I feel an intimate connection with Kuna, who I asked about as soon as I got off the plane, and Mickey. I feel an intimate connection, with Two Liver. Yeah, that's you, Harvey. And how many people, I'm in Toronto. How many of you do I know, and you kind of know me? And how many women did I sponsor that got sober on the Zoom? I didn't sponsor a ton of them, but I had women that sponsored women that got sober on the Zoom. I sponsored women that got sober on the Zoom. And now we're getting together in person. So we're getting the best of all of it, And so service was it. God was it. And it's like, what would God have me be and do? My priority was like it was after the wreck. It was like it was, I broke my neck. That was the grand finale of those 6 years. I fell through my attic and broke my neck, and my C5 split in half. I was paralyzed from the chest down. And I spent 3 months in the hospital. Nobody knew if I could move only like this. And that's the only time in sobriety that I really, really, I wanted to die. And I told my friends who've been helping me every time I've been sick, I don't want to come out of this. And they said, too bad. And they said, get you up for us, right? And it's like, and I was disconnected from God. I'd had that 6 years. And there is a great and grave loneliness that happens for me when I have had this spiritual experience. I've been close to God. I felt God. It makes me safe. I mean it when I say we got a God shield. If I can feel connected to God, there's nothing in life that's scary. It's when I forget to put that on. It's when I forget to do this in the morning. It's when I forget to review at night, and then the next day it's like, that can start right back up. They're just dormant, But the loneliness that happens, and see, we talk about, I don't think meeting makers necessarily make it. I went to meetings and drank. Meeting makers that do the deal make it. And for me, I won't do the deal if I don't make meetings. See, I won't be reminded of why being connected with God is so important. I won't see that miracle. I won't remember that I simply cannot pay Alcoholics Anonymous back. I simply can't. Try it. Try to give back enough that you're not overpaid. Think about that. Every time we give, what happens? We get more. And so for me, I'm a seeker. I'm a seeker. I take very seriously grow along spiritual lines, don't arrive there. And so my spiritual life and my relationship with God is quite different than it was 5 years ago, which is quite different than it was 5 years before that. It grow, not stay the same. And much more time is spent with God now than was. The two places I get closest to God is in, what, three? Newcomer, right? Newcomer, always. Put my hands in the dirt to do some planting. Or brand new baby. They just came from God, you know? And now I've found the experience that when someone is dying, it forces me to really connect with God. Right before this, my sister texted me, my brother-in-law has multiple myeloma. And he was supposed to live 2 years, and he's had it for 12. It's amazing. He's been through things that 2 stem cell transplants, CAR T cell, and he's done amazing. And I've learned so much from him. But he just got taken to the hospital in not good shape. And I really hope things are okay till I get home. Because my sister, this is another thing, I didn't talk about it in the amends. I'm just going to free for all right? Because this is all about connecting with God. And you have these bookends of the day. But the bookends of the day are 5% of the 11th step. They are 5%. They are the discipline, because I lack it, that make sure I remember to do the 95% of the step, which is conscious contact throughout the day. Turning my thoughts to what God would have me do and be throughout the day. That's the challenging part. But if I do the morning part, and if I looked at my behavior yesterday, the chances are I'm going to stay connected, right? I'm going to stay connected. My sister was my first amends. Now understand there's 4 of us. My parents are educated. None of us went to high school. Well, none of us graduated high school. I didn't go. My sister, not an alcoholic, the only one. She left home at 50. She got pregnant to get out of the house. So she had a baby at 15. She got kicked out of National Honor Society. So she quit school. She got her GED. She went on, she became an engineer. She does religion. Groovy. She wouldn't let me near the baby. I just got out of treatment. The night that she turned 15, I was in jail, and I was out of my mind in a drunk blackout, like an animal, because that's what I would do. And she took the call, and she was mortified, and she was tired, and she was resentful at me. I didn't understand. Every one of my siblings said at one time, "You left me," because see, now I get a Mother's Day card from my sister. She calls me Mama Sister, because that's what I am. She said, "I'm the only one that has unconditional love." And what a gift for me, because I didn't get to have any kids, but what happened was I would be taking it, because I took it for my siblings to protect them. I was the oldest. And what I didn't understand is that would traumatize her. So I made amends to her for, I was mean. Stuff rolls downhill. I'd get smacked. She'd be smacking her lips real loud. We shared a bed, right? Real loud at night. I'd smack her. That's mean. I was like 9. But I knew that it hurt her. That was not what she was mad at me about. But that's what I knew I had done. And so I went and I made amends. And she broke down and she started crying. And she said, I would sit in the corner and I would be terrified of when you were going to get killed, and I would be like, shut up, because I didn't shut up. My dad would be going after somebody and I'd run my mouth. She didn't understand the whole dynamic. But then I still didn't shut up. This is child abuse while you're in the middle of getting walloped. That's perhaps my alcoholism before the drink, right? And everything fell down. And she is like, we're very different. She's my shero and I am hers. And I champion her, and I treat her like women in the program that are struggling. When you're struggling in the program and we have an intimate relationship, I can't do it with everybody, but I reach out daily. I send little things. I try, because consideration is something that, and so my sister, all the time that her husband's gone and like through this thing, that's what I do. And she's probably my closest friend. And it's really weird. It's and I really like her, and I don't know how to show up for her right now. And so this is the 11th step in motion. I don't know. I mean, we have all these sick people in our lives. My parents are very sick. My mom was at the hospital yesterday. You know, my dad probably has bladder cancer. There's all this sickness. And my mom, she was so scared when she went and had, you know, a heart thing. And I said to her, but I said, Mom, she wanted to know how I felt about death. I said, it's the next adventure. It's the next adventure. And then I, because we like to take trips, you know, and it's like, and I said, remember the first time you went international, how scary it is? And so, because I've been told I was going to die many times sober, many. And so I get to have that experience. I sponsor older women. I think part of the reason that some of the women I sponsor are older is because I have all these near-death experience, all these health things that are part of aging that the big book doesn't really say, well, here's how you deal with barely being able to walk in the morning. You know, here are systems and tools for helping your memory, right? Well, I had to have all that for a long time. I have all these tools, and it's helpful. So everything bad has become something good and continues to. But I don't know how to show up for my sister. And it's one of the few places, like, I'm a little bit afraid of failing. I don't want to fail her. It's probably the closest I get to feel like a mom, right? Like you guys feel. I'm not a mom, so I don't know. But I think this might be from the girls I sponsor, kind of how they feel. They just don't want them to hurt. And how can I help? And this is where I have to ask God. And I have to trust that God will give me what I need. And I have to get me out of the way. And I have to stop this. And I have to say, all right, God, I have to breathe. I have to breathe. That's why the flute's so important for me, because it gets my energy to hear. I cannot connect with God when my energy's here. I cannot. I cannot. You know, because it is going to win. I have to get my energy below the God box. And when I get my energy below the God box, I can feel God. And I can hear God. And then I will know what to do. Am I willing to pause and take the time to get me out of the way and to really spend a minute to connect with God and ask, what would you have me do? Or do I just figure it out? So that's at 95%, right? And that's different than 10th step, which I just screwed up and did something, right? And I've got to pause before I do something. This is about intuitive thought for next action before I've done anything, right? This is about intuitive action. It's about pause when agitated or doubtful. Now, I don't have a pause button. I don't know if I ever did, but I have a frontal lobe injury. And if you know anything about brain injuries, it's your impulse control. And so I really don't have a pause button. I'm like a brand new spanking newcomer if I'm just left to my own devices, right? So I have an artificial pause button. Which requires sleep, food, all the things you taught me in God, right? And so I have little things, little systems in place that help me step back and remember That the only way, because what happens is I have a fear button too, right? I got a God button, I got a love button, I got a fear button. And when fear's going on, I get this like vibrating thing over here. Do you know what I mean? I'm going into something and it feels like this, but I'm not afraid. No, I'm not afraid. Because fear's bad and people in AA don't have it. So I don't have it. I have it. I have fear because it is part of a full library of feelings. And it is not a bad emotion. It is a bad emotion for me to feed. So if fear just happens and I let it go and I recognize and I say, hello and goodbye, I'm going to feed faith. I'm going to feed God. All right? Then fear doesn't own me. But when I ignore fear and I smash it down and I try to pretend fear doesn't exist and that I don't have it because I'm that kind of AA, then I'm maniacal. I'm maniacal. So it's there. Hi, baby. I had it when I was texting with my sister. I had it. You know that thing that happens? And for me, usually it's what Bob was talking about. I don't have power. I don't have control. I can't fix this. I can't make her husband not die. She has hurt her entire little life. Golly, sorry. And I can't make her not hurt. But I can love her. And I can only do that. I can't love her by fixing, managing, and controlling. I can't. I can only love her by tapping into the real power. And then I get to love her. And she's going to hurt. She's going to hurt a lot. Because he's the only time she's ever really felt safe. And he taught her that men are good. And, he showed up. But here's what Don M tells me. Don M has made me very proud of myself. He affirms me, which is really super. He says, Cyndi, and here's how he says it, you can fake caring, but you can't fake showing up. No doubt. And so that's what Kent was talking about, disconnecting from my head and moving my feet in the way that we've learned. I show up, including with God. See, it's not just showing up at the meeting. Sometimes, if I got this energy level, running to that meeting an hour early may not be my best thing. It may be my best thing to sit for 10 minutes with God so that I can come to the meeting connected with God and not be the taker that Bob talked about. So that I can come. Now, if that still doesn't go away, I better go to the meeting. But perhaps if I connect with God, instead of just going in with all of my anxiety and all of my needs, and, maybe I can come in and have a different experience in the meeting. That's so hard for me because I want to feel better. And my first instinct is to look outside of me to feel better. Will the meeting make me feel better? Not will I bring something to the meeting. Will the meeting make me feel better? Will you make me feel better? Will the new car make me feel better? What will make me feel better? And here's the truth. The only real good feeling I ever get is connected to God. And the first place I felt totally connected with God was sponsoring someone and watching hope come in their face. And then it's just growing in all these different places. I see it in my sister. She and I was at her house a few weeks ago. She lives on a lake, and she got these baby bluebirds, and a mom and dad are coming and feeding them. And literally, we sat for 4 hours in silence together, which is a really great relationship. Sometimes I have certain friends, we go kayaking or canoeing just to be quiet together. We have a group of women I got sober with, and sometimes the men, and we hike. And I take one Friday off a month to go hike. We meet halfway between Cincinnati and Louisville. And we hike in silence. And then we talk about afterwards. For alcoholics to hike in silence, like 6 of us, it's crazy, right? So this is what I mean by continuing to seek and grow. I did want to drink once sober when I was 5 years old. And I share this because Bill wanted to drink lots, and Dr. Bob didn't. And I called my sponsor, which is the smartest thing to do when you want to drink. You think it's a bad idea to tell her, but it's a really good idea to tell her. And I called her and I said, I had a business back then, and I'm like, everybody else drinks scotch. Now, I was not a scotch drinker, I assure you. And I said, I deserve to have scotch after work like everybody else. I'm like an entitled person, right? And she laughed at me. She said, get up a half hour earlier. So there's a penalty when you're young, right? Get up a half hour earlier, walk your neighborhood, count miracles, and call me back. The first day which was that day, that I went and counted miracles, it was spring, I saw grass come back up. It's the simplest of things. But if you think about how miraculous it is, that it completely dies and is reborn, just like us, it was enough. It was like, holy moly. And once I'm focused on miracles, which focused me on God, you see, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just, what is God? I have other girls that send me their gratitude list every night. And by the way, I share my junk back. I share my junk back. They share their 11-step inventory. I send them mine. I want them to see my failures. I want a shoulder-to-shoulder relationship. That means I don't separate you from me. I don't have a hierarchy. I screw up. I get afraid. I hurt. I don't stay in it. I move quickly through it because I do these things. I literally am the happiest person I know. I am. And the only time I'm not really happy is when I drift into remorse because I made a mistake. Because I don't like to hurt people. It hurts me to hurt people. So it's not just a mistake, and it's not just a mistake that makes me embarrassed, but it's a mistake that hurts somebody's feelings. I used to not care, but I care. Is that not showing God off? Like, we care. I care. I usually have a lot more to say about this. I don't even know how long I've talked. Let me look. I've talked plenty. Yay. So here's what I believe. I try not to fill my time most of the time. Here's why. I want you to listen. And by the last 10 minutes, you're tired. You're behind tired. But I just don't want it. For me, I used to, and sometimes I would talk over a lot, and I don't have anything more important to say than you do. I don't. I have different experiences, and I have a lot of experiences. I've been sober a long time, and I've worked so hard. And I'm a demonstrable miracle because my bottom was so low, because I'm totally of the hopeless variety, because I am somebody that didn't stand a chance, period, and because my whole life shines. How blessed am I? Connecting with God, the whole point of this book, the whole point of this deal, is to connect with the power greater than yourself. Oh, I do have one other thing I want to say. I can't tell you who God is. The difference in us and the Washingtonians, that's one of the things. We don't define your God for you. It's the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. I feel God. I don't think God. I feel him in this listening box. When I tap into God, oh my gosh. When I put the God shield on, there's nothing I can't handle. My thoughts of God have changed through the years. And I have different thoughts of God, but I don't have a definition. I do not have people write out, how do you define God in their second step or third step? How could you possibly know? You're brand spanking new. You know what I mean? Just feel God, experience God, look for God, watch God. You know, and it's like when God's infinite, we're finite. If you have a religion, it tells you who your God is. If you believe in that religion, I support that 1,000%. And if you don't have a religion or you're afraid of religion, it's like There's so many other paths to God. So we talked about the oak tree that was my higher power. It's no longer my higher power, but it is one of my heroes. So now they've learned, there's a World Wide Web. Well, there is a worldwide root system for trees. Look it up. It is the super coolest thing. And so what happens is trees go in and the roots talk to each other. And so let's say there's a tree here that's not getting the nutrients it needs, and this tree over here has got enough. This tree over here spits it out into the dirt where this tree is with its root system. So that see, that's what AA is. We got so much, we got so much. When you don't have enough, I do. And when I don't have enough, you seem to. And that's how this deal works. We really are just like the trees. Creatures of God helping each other. And I know that's a really weird analogy, but I just think it's cool. I love you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.